Hello. Welcome, everybody, to today's Lunch and Learn. I'll be your host, Jared. I am on the training team. I help train people, help them learn new and fun things about the Decisions application tool. And I'll be answering questions and demonstrating how to build and also how to think conceptually about the product. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. And while you're gathering your questions, I have a pre-submitted question that I'm going to work through and talk about it. Let's see, where is that question? Aha, found it. All right, so basically we have a question from a customer. Basically the question is, I have a data repeater in a form. When I click the add rows button, it adds them correctly. Similarly, I have an alternative button that deletes the rows from the repeater when I click the delete row button. However, I noticed that the deleted rows don't actually get deleted on the back end. Rather, they simply aren't mapped. We ran a raw SQL step to delete it, but to no avail. How can we delete these unmapped rows? All right, so I built a tiny little use case for to demonstrate this issue. And basically what this does is this illustrates a concept in decisions called logical deletion, it's the concept that things in the decisions environment, and let me drag over my environment just so you can see what I'm talking about, is things in the decisions environment are what we call soft deleted, meaning, let me remove this because this won't make sense just yet. Things are soft deleted. And what we mean by that is, let's say I want to delete this entity data folder, right? If I go ahead and delete this entity data folder, we'll say delete the folder, delete. Then if I go into the folder view of this folder, and then if I go into change, and if I go to say all folder items that are deleted, you'll see that I have my entity folder data item right here. So decisions doesn't permanently delete things, it just soft deletes it. What permanently deletes it is when you set the archive date for those specific entities. And entities are anything from folders to user-defined entities like case entities and the entity data type data structure that you create in decisions. All those are soft deleted once you delete them. So how do you permanently delete them? Well, to permanently delete them, you have to set the archive date. When you set the archive date on that thing that needs to be deleted, then once you do that, it will be permanently deleted. So if I say, hey, we want to permanently delete this thing, and it's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the East Coast of the United States of America, it will be deleted. So I'm going to do it for 12:10 p.m. my time. And so now once that time reaches, that thing will go away. So that's the concept that we're talking about right now. So how does this relate to the question that will be asked? And I see your question, Nancy. I'll get to it in just one sec. How this relates to our example here is I have built, let me go back to the list view here. I have built a little process that when I run this and say show form, you see that I have a case entity data structure that appears in this data repeater row. I can look at the details of it, and I have this kind of sub process that I've built associated with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to generate a new piece of data so that we have some extra data that I can deal with. And when I run this, right, I'll have this other property, and I can look, I have these two different pieces of data. Now, the data types of this, and I'll try to keep this brief, but detailed enough, is that the data repeater is a case entity. And inside that case entity, I have a composite type that's a list. And this is an entity. And so now what happens here is when I want to delete a specific row. So going back to the question, right? When we delete a row, we see that things don't actually get deleted, right? And what you'll want to see is that's because when I go to show the form here, right? And if I want to go to delete, let's say I want to delete this new row that I added here, and I'm going to say, hey, let's delete this row. Boom, that goes away. I created a custom notification to say, hey, this thing's been deleted. But what you'll see here in decisions is when I go to the query editor to query that database to see what got added and what got deleted, and I have this query preloaded, when I run this, you'll see that I still have those records here because everything's soft deleted. But if I go all the way to the right, I can see over here that this thing is set to archived and it's set to delete. But as you can see, the archive date is set for October, right? So that's why this thing still exists in the system, because the archive date is next month. To get this thing to permanently go bye-bye, I need to make sure that I set the archive date on that particular piece of data to 9/14 or 9/13 to today. Then once I set that and I set this archive date here, then that record is gone. Like, unless you have a backup, you can't get that piece of data. So that's the answer to that pre-submitted question, is whenever you delete something through the data repeater or through the flow engine, it will set the archive date by default to the next month. And so that's why when you delete something, it still technically exists in the back end, and you'll need to update this field value to say, hey, go ahead and make this archive date come sooner. And then once you do that, then that record is gone. All right, so that's a summary of that. I just wanted to answer that question so we can have that on the recording. And if there's any further questions on that, feel free to ask. All right, I'm going to jump over to Nancy. Thank you so much for waiting patiently, Nancy. And this question says, hi, I followed the example lab of pulling data from a data grid using a data flow, where it's pulling data from account. When I set up pulling data from account like the example, worked great. So did against a group. But I can't get the same to work against a data structure I've created. Is there something I'm missing? Basically, I need to pull in a list to a data grid in a data source, then put some text cells and do some editing on one of my elements in the list. I'm going to actually pop you on, if you can, I'm going to allow you to talk, Nancy. Could you expound more upon that? Do you know, like, is this a user, what kind of user defined type are you using?
It's probably just a simple data structure.
Okay.
It's mostly what I create.
Okay. What are the fields that you're pulling from?
Well, it would be my own data structure. So
Mm-hmm.
it'd just be anything. Like if you just created a data structure, or if you have a data structure existing.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, then I'll just walk through one, and you can just let me know if there's some clarification needed. So to do that, here's how what I would do. So obviously the ones with the account and the group worked perfectly, right? It's easy. We already have that. I'm going to create my own database structure, so I have a similar environment to you, and I'm going to call this my data. Or I'm going to call this I love the doc team, and the doc team is going to be with the names of people. It's going to have like the name. We'll say position, and then we'll say or writing expertise. And well, those would be my three fields, right? And so what I'm gonna do is, and are you trying? So okay, I think I'm my brain's slowly coming in. I think I'm seeing where what you're looking for. Okay, so we have the data structure. I'm going to. Do you have a form that you're using, or?
So I've loaded up my data structure with a bunch of data just
Okay.
through the import.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you already have some preloaded data. Okay, so let me create some preloaded data. So preload some data. Create. And we'll do this real quick. We're going to get a user defined type. I'm going to say I love the doc team. Put this here, put this here. We'll create some data. Oops, inputs. Build some data. I'm going to say Will Clemens will be the star for this one. Position, doc writer. Right, writing expertise, expert. Right, I'm gonna create this data. Awesome. Then I'm gonna say this is Kirsten. I think I spelled her name. Did I spell her name right, Will? I think I did. Don't tell her if I didn't. Doc writer, expert. And then I'll put myself. We'll do Jared. And then novice. All right, and then we got a debug. Okay, cool. So now I have an advanced, and you said it's an advanced data grid or a data grid?
Um, I've just got a data grid on this one.
Okay, cool. Here, I'm going to show you two ways because I think this will really help. So there's two ways you can do this. We have a bunch of different grid controls. There's three primary ones. There could be more, but the ones that I remember are just three. So we'll say this is editing doc writer data. The three that we have are the data grid over here, and then we have the advanced data grid. Boom. What is the difference between the two? The difference between these two is that the data grid advanced leverages the report designer, which is the one I'm going to use because I like that one the best and I think it's the easiest to use. But you can, the same stuff that I'm doing with the data grid advanced, you can do with the data grid. It's just, it doesn't look pretty. Like that's literally the difference. One leverages the report designer and it looks pretty, and there might be some properties in an easier way, but that's why I like it. So the other one that you can do is you can also create a data repeater. It requires a little bit more configuration to manipulate rows because you have to create the data repeater, create the form controls, input the data, and stuff like that. So the thing that's going to be important here is that for my demonstration, I'll just be using just the advanced data grid. All right, so the advanced data grid. So what we got here is I'm going to put this all over here. I'm going to put the button to the bottom here, input type here, and then I'm going to say this is, was it I love doc team? This is going to be a doc team. And the advanced data grid have editing the data sources to show the name. So I can say name, position, and writing expertise, put all the details there. And let me know if this is kind of similar to what you have set up.
It's fine.
And then, okay, perfect. Fetch entities because I need to get my data so I can display it here. Boom, boom. And we'll say this is I love the doc team. And I'm just doing this just so I have the data in my form, right? There's many ways I could have populated this. I could have done it back to form flow, but for the sake of demonstration, I'm just doing it this way. All right, so boom, got the form. There we got Will Clemens, Kirsten Johnston, and myself. So now let's say I want to edit these rows to, like edit some of the data. Like I didn't put my last name, I want to edit it and then have it appeared that way. So this is the part that's going to be, let's see, is where we're going to have to do a couple of configurations here. And I'm just going to go back to your question so I can get some data to work. I want to list it to a grid.
So
and then put that in some text. Yeah, go ahead.
In that example that I like is, so there's another flow that it's an API that pulls the data.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I click on say Jared, it would pull in what I'd want, into the form. But if there's another way, I mean, in the end, I don't really care, but
Mm-hmm.
I need to pull this in and then have some cells that will populate. Because one of my pieces of information is a list. And so
Mm-hmm.
I can't populate that with the way that I uploaded it. So I need to do it here.
Oh, so okay. So is it more like you're looking for something? Just this is helping me understand better. So if I do this, I'm gonna run this flow again. Something like you have this, like, hey, I have additional properties here. And then if I click over here, I can see more details of what the thing is.
No, it's just so it would be if you had if you went back to your data structure and added another element.
Mm-hmm. Where did I put it? Darn it.
Another
Editing
number.
Mm-hmm.
And you made it a list. So it's a string, but it's a list.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is it a primitive type or a composite type?
I'm
Like,
sorry.
is it a text? Is it a piece of text,
Yes,
or are you
yes.
Okay,
It's a
gotcha.
string. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And then I'll just save this.
Yes.
Okay, and so then I go back to my flow. That's preloading editing data. And so you want to display that somewhere, is
I
what
want
you're
to
saying.
display, they could change, say, doc writer, or they could change, from you to, you might go from novice to expert. So they could basically ability to pop that data into where they can change that information.
Okay. I think, okay, here's what I'm going to suggest. And if this is totally off the wall, let me know. I think what we can do with that is if we have a list of, so if we have another property and we want to change something. So let's say in my form, I have, right, let's do just nicknames and then shift. I will say this is a string list. And then this is going to be static. And I'm going to say this is going to be writing extraordinaire. I'm not spelling this right. It's okay. Amazing needs work or something like that, right? So I have some data text and I want to add that data text into one of the fields there. So what I could do is, this is one of many ways you can do it. You can also make this more automated, is I can have an event button that runs, raise event, and I can say like add name, add text to data structure. And then I can have an active form flow run. And we'll say this is add data to doc team. This is going to be on the event click. And when I run this is the part I'll slow down for. So we're in the active form flow. What you can do is I can say, hey, I want to run a selective update step. And every selective update that we have is always tied to the user defined types. You can't really search for it. Can't find it. But if I go all the way down to user defined types, if I go down to my database structure or whatever your structure is, I can say, hey, I want to change something about it. And then I can, so let's see, writing expertise, position, sure, list of names. Then what I can do is I can pass in the ID of a piece of the data. Let's see if I can. Advanced data grid. We're going to do, I'm just going to grab the first one just so you can see how this is. And then I can say I want to grab let's change the writing expertise to whatever the selection is of the form. Anytime you're in an active form flow, you're always using the form data to find the control you're looking for. And then I can go to my combo box and say, hey, add the selected item into here. And so now when I do that and I run this flow, should be able to see how that data will then get updated. And just so that I update or I reload the what is it? I reload the advanced data grid so you see that change reflected. I'm just going to drag another fetch entity step to demonstrate this. And so you can see that change be reflected. And then I'm going to have this change the output mapping here, form data, advanced data grid, and then the item source, which is the doc team here. That gets changed, and you'll see that data get updated. Save. Okay, perfect. Now, when I debug this, I can see like, hey, the nicknames, let's add writing extraordinaire. And I'll add this to the Will Clemens record because he's the first one. And I add the text there. Well, I had an error. What's my error? Oh, I didn't pass in the ID. Oops. Primary key. Yeah, pass in the ID. Hold on. I messed up. Basically, the important thing with that is you'll want to make sure you always pass in the ID of that data. So let me go ahead and edit that quickly there. Edit that real quick. Nicknames, the ID. So I have the ID. Advanced data grid, doc team, first ID. Advanced data grid. Yeah, we got it. That's the first ID. So you shouldn't be outputting a null because Let me do this. Let me add the ID here so we can say, hey, it's right there. So it should be appearing. Perfect. That's saved. We'll try this one more time. Let me just confirm that I have that selective update step attached to it. Yep, so it's got doc team first, you got the ID. All right, so it should work. If not, what I'll do for sake of brevity is, can you send me your email? I'll mess around with this offline and I'll email you a project that I've built that will demonstrate this, and I'll get this fixed so that you won't have to just watch me stumble over or troubleshoot this. Okay, so we got the ID there. So if I say change this to writing extraordinaire and add text, I think that's just a bug with the active. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. Save this. Close out of here. Now let me editing the data. Now let me debug. And now we're going to say add writing extraordinaire, add the text to it. Nope, sounds like it. Yeah, go ahead and place, Nancy, if you could send your email in the chat, I'll go ahead and mess around with this and
Sure.
send you one, because essentially that's all it would be. That's a more manual way to do it. If you want to have a user to be able to look at some list of data and then add it to it. There's another easier way that I can demonstrate real quickly, is you can also allow users to inline edit whenever you utilize the advanced data grid. So you can say, hey, you can inline edit, and then you can give users the ability to edit the data here. And so I can just actually left click. So if I want to change the writing expertise, I could say can edit on that kind of report view here. And then select the can edit here. And then when I debug this, preload editing data. And then I can write in data that I want, like amazing. Then I can send that and save that.
So that one's a list. So that one has, we put that in as, I'm sorry, it was the other column that we added that was a list.
Mm-hmm.
And can you edit that in that grid?
That would be kind of hard because the lists are in that are serialized in the data grid. So if I actually show it here, and if I populate some data, let's see if I go to edit, and let's add that field here, nicknames, and save. And let me create an actual record that actually has some nicknames attached to it. Come on. Perfect. Preload some data. Let's say I add another one for me, but my nicknames I have, JJ, JRod, J. All right, and then I debug this, and then as that debugs, I'm just gonna go log back in. Yeah, I know you're complaining. All right, so I guess we'll do it this way. Come on. I gotta restart my local because either something froze or what. But yeah, so with that one, finally, wow. Yeah, I just need to refresh this. So in data grid, I think it's data grid. So now when I go ahead and I just debug this to see that list of data, you'll see that now, right? It's all serialized. It kind of combines all of that. So I can still edit it, right? But everything's split by a comma. And so that's how that one works. So if I wanted to add another one, yeah, I can add like comma, and this could be, JRod 2 or something like that. And then it would have that. Or let's see, never mind, you can't because it's a serialized object. So that one you'd have to create a sub dialog. That's why what I would do is I would actually advise anytime you have to deal with data like that, where you have a listed another property that you need to edit, it's very useful to do something like this. Let me run this flow again, where I can say, hey, I have some data here. I want to look at some details and display those extra details here. And then they can edit those details on that kind of subdialog form. So, but I'll build you a project. So if you just post your email here, I'll build you something really quick and I'll email it to you so you can like kind of have something to play with.
Okay. All right, I'll put that in there.
Thanks so much. Anne said, hi, is it okay to do a separate section with you after everyone else? I have an issue with the inputting of a list of a run flow for list step, and maybe the issue related to me naming the list type to the data structure that I deleted beforehand. As a separate section. You could ask it. I mean, I could put you on. I can allow you to talk and now, and you can walk me through what the setup is.
Yes. So the thing is that I was trying to do like a JSON deserialize, and then so it's like a big data structure, and then within the data structure there's a different data structure, and then that was the previous JSON deserialized data structure. And then I was trying to do like a run flow for a list, because like the previous one was not working, and then I just delete that one. And I used the new one in the JSON like in the big data structure, and then the previous one that I deleted and I named them exactly the same was having issues. Not able to like pick up the like the run flow for a list, because it should be the same thing. But then it was keeping telling me that there was like a data type errors.
Yes. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So the thing about data structures, this applies to like when you're doing JSON or was it JSON or any even user defined types, is let me create another one right here. So here we go. Having fun with data types is they all get preloaded into the database and the backend database via a what we call it. Oh, what's the word? I forgot it. It's namespace. Namespace is what we call it. And when I create a data type, right, I'm just gonna do a database structure, right? I have this namespace type. And so if you notice, if I name this test1, and we'll say this has test, and this has a property, right? And then I save this. Awesome. And then let's say I realize, you know what, I actually don't really want this. I don't need this data type, and then I delete it. And then it goes away. But then because it goes away, I'm going to say, hey, actually, I forget, and I say I need to create another database structure with test, and you'll see that it says, hey, this table already exists, right? Because the namespace is the same. So if I just change the namespace to having fun or something else, then you'll see that error goes away. So now I'll show you that also with JSON. So if I do JSON data type, if I do JSON data example, there we go, sample. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Back. JSON example. Haha, this is menu. Okay, here we go, perfect. So I got some menus. Menu item, all right, so I got this. So how does that relate to your situation? So that scenario that I've talked about applies for creating types with JSON as well. So if I paste in my data here, and I think this is a valid JSON, notice that I have the same namespace here. So let's say I call this my menu. And I want to select all of those, create it. Then I have all of these flow structures that I have here. And if I delete it, and I don't change the namespace, then it will appear and then it won't allow me to create that data structure again because of the namespace. Does that answer your question?
Kinda, but so can you go back to like the menu thing that I have? So before, my data structure that links to the JSON deserialized was pop-up. Like in this case, is menu items.
Mm-hmm.
It's a list of it, and then because it's not working because it's a list, I create like the menu array, like menu data structure, and then one of them includes menu items. So I
Mm-hmm.
did the original menu items and I renamed, like I create a new one that was also renamed as menu items.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was not cannot be like used in run full for list because they were looking for a different type.
So it sounds like, so if I understand the primary issue, it's you have a JSON deserialize of that data.
Yes. And then when I
Okay.
was trying to create data, and then JSON deserialize after JSON deserialize, it was creating data, and then it was not working if I just wanted to create that only like the list of data.
So we're doing this. And then let's see how I could serialize this. I want to serialize this data. Ooh, actually, I can just do it in decisions. Edit this. And I'll use this. Nope. Let's create another flow. New flow. So this JSON. And there you go. Okay. And so now I have this type into the menu. Boom. Cool. Sure, let's create a menu. So ID is this. Add, on click, test, do this. Okay, and then value. Actually, I could do this in the other way. JSON serialize. Menu. Constant edit menu. Top menu item. So a thing to be aware of, and I'll say this is fun, is that when decisions creates that data type, where's my data types? Data types. We have it. They'll name one, which is the main flow structure, which is just, hey, this is the menu, and then it has that subtype for the actual data type within the JSON. So if you noticed in my JSON package, right, I called this thing menu, right, and that menu name here is this menu simple flow structure. But inside, there's actually a nested data type called menu here, and decisions name that menu too. And with that menu, that's a list. So when we want to deserialize something, we'll want to make sure that we reference the correct menu. So even though we may think we're getting an output list, we're actually not getting an output list from that JSON. The menu data type is actually one flow structure decision data type, just there's a subtype that has a list of arrays. So for example, if I grab this and hey, this deserialize JSON output, I'm going to have this as the menu or the main type that I created in decisions. Then when I debug this, you'll see that this gets deserialized appropriately. Now, let's say I want to drag like this menu here. I have a list of menu items, right? In this case, I just have one. But if I had multiple, then in those menu items, if I want to send that to a run flow for list, right? Kind of like what you're doing, then I'm going to make sure that my JSON type, if I want to have that list, right, I'm going to go back to my data type. So my menu item is this list, right? It's the list of menu items. So I'm going to make sure that my data type is menu item, right? And then I can select from flow in the deserialized output. I can drill down and find my specific menu item. Where is it?
That's kind of like the issue that I'm having. It's like it was expecting a different data type in the run flow for list, even though it is the same type.
Well, the issue there is it's not, they're the same type, but this is a list. So in decisions, I can't just output a single value into a list, even though it's the same data type, because that means that it doesn't know how to deal with it. So if you do want to, so in this case, let's say my menu item is 1, and I only want to pass in one thing, I can then say build array and then select from flow, and then I can grab my menu item, and then you can pass that through. Right, because here the data type is menu item. And here we deserialize, and let me debug this to get the whole context of my data output. So I have menu, pop up menu item, and then I can grab that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds like still a little lost. That's okay.
Because I think I'm doing what you're doing, but then it was having the issue, still having the issue.
If I add another one, this would be 4, 5, 6. It's menu 2, edit define. Value pop up. Edit define. So that's a single one. Menu 2, edit. I think this is the list. Okay. So that's for the list. Another thing you can do is also helps to, if you want to look at the flow structures, all decisions does with the JSON is it just creates flow structures for each of the items. So if you want to find out where your lists are, you can edit the defined data structure and say, okay, there's no list here because there's nothing checked here. Okay, there's no list here because this isn't checked. But if I go all the way to the pop-ups right here and I say edit, notice that it says menu item. Okay, that is a list in the pop-up section of the data structure. So now let's go ahead and let me drill down. Hold on. Go here, the serialized output menu, we go to pop-up, and then pop-up has my menu item, and boom. And then I can map that in. So the first step, what I would do, Ann, is I would actually go through, look at all the flow structures that are created, edit the defined data structure, and find out where those lists are. And if you find this list, then that's what you navigate to. Because everything else just means it's a single item. Does that make sense?
Yes, but is it okay to show you?
Unfortunately I can't have, we're recording this, so I can't have you share a screen.
Okay.
If you need further assistance, I would just submit a support ticket. And a technician can show you that.
Okay, that's good.
Alrighty, we got another question. Tyson. All right, Tyson asks, afternoon, I was trying to find the text merge data structure that I can't seem to find. Did that get removed? Text merge data structure. Let us see. I don't know the answer to that question. Let me go ahead and create another flow. Or actually, I'm just going to use one of these flows that I have. And we're going to go to create data. Let's type text, alignment, text merge event. Is that the one you're referring to, Tyson? Let me allow you to talk so you can expound if that's what you're referring to.
The one that I'm looking at is it's just called a text merge inside my data structures folder.
Text merge inside your data structures folder. Like, so is this a designer project folder?
Yeah, designer project folder.
Oh, okay. So it's like other, okay. And you're like create text. Like this thing is what you're talking about?
Yes, where was that?
Yep. So yeah, it's a little obfuscated. So, but I'm gonna use my cool annotation tool. So this is, we have the primary actions here. To get to text merge, there is this little other thing right over here. If you click other, you'll have the options for the query editor and text merge. And all I did is I clicked on other, and then I go to create text.
Brilliant. Thank you.
My pleasure. Awesome. All right. Are there any other questions? Cool. All right. I don't see any questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create the thing that I'm going to create for Nancy, since I got 15 minutes. So you're going to see my speed building capabilities real quick. And I'm actually going to want to delete this folder because I'm getting confused with all of my weird folders. Is my mic out? Really? Can you guys hear me? Anyone hear me? Okay. Tyson can. Something wrong with your mic, Will. Scared me. Whew. I got scared there for a second. Delete this. Example case. Don't want to leave that one. Then we'll delete this example lab. Delete the folder. All right. All right. Speed building. Here we're going. All right. So I'm going to name this folder. I'm going to say this is for Nancy. Make it at root. And I'm going to go back to her question so I can follow along with it. The example lab pulling in data. And so we want to get something from a list and be able to work with data, get the data structure. And so, okay, so we can do, I'm trying to think how to do this. Database structure, I'm going to say this is a list of, I'll call this dogs. Why not? People like dogs. I'm going to say dog name. We're going to say the dogs have a name. They have a temperament. And we're going to say that they are a breed, right? And the breed can be a list because they can be a mix of things. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to say, I'm going to save this. Perfect. And if I need to add, I'm going to create a form real quick. And this is going to be AD grid form, AD dog grid form. And I'm going to drag over the advanced data grid. I'm going to do this here. And I'm going to call this is the dog. Dogs, input type is dogs. And we'll make this, sure, we can have it as info mode only. Well, then if it says info mode, info mode here. And I'm actually going to I'm going to create a data repeater. And this is going to be done. Actually, I might show, what would be the easiest way to show this? This is a nice thing. Let's do this. I want to do a data repeater. So I want to create a form, create a data repeater control. And it's going to be, let's see. So we have a list of the breeds, which is a string. And I want to display that. So we can split that based on the comma that we get out of that. So I'm going to do repeater control. This is going to be dogs repeater control. I'm going to do this one, dogs repeater control. And we're going to do the text box, and we're going to do temperament. And then we can do the sub dialog. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah. Sub dialog button. And we'll do sub dialog button. Boom. So now I'm going to say, we'll call this view breed info. That's what we're going to call this. We'll have that use legacy. This is going to be the type dog. How much time I got? 12 minutes. All right. Speed. Let's do this for speed. Input type is going to be dog. And we're gonna have, this one's going to be the dog's name. This one's gonna be the dog's temperament. Boom. All right, so now I got that data repeater for me. So now when I go into my form, I'm actually going to have this as a data repeater. Boom. And I'm gonna have this just be filled up here. And it's gonna be pretty small, so I'll make that right here, data repeater control. Boom. Oops, actually not a little too much. Perfect. And this is just gonna be dogs, right? And so I can view the breed info, which is a list of strings, and I can orient that in another way. And then what I can do is I can say, hey, let's go and let's preload some data, right? Preload data. So I'm gonna call this, and this one's gonna be just the create data step for the dogs. Use define types. We're gonna go to database structures, dogs, create dogs. Put this in here. We're gonna build data on this. The name of the dog is gonna be one of my favorite dogs, Comanche. I had her a long time ago. It was an old dog. She lived till, but she was like 24 years old. Really old mutt. Great dog. And she was kind. We'll put it that way. We're gonna create this one. All right. I had another dog who was okay. His name was Cisco, and it was very bubbly. It was very fun. Would jump on you. Really cool dog. Another dog I had a long time ago. All right, cool. So now we have at least 2 pieces of data in my dog info. So now I will need to put in some breed information. So now what I'm going to do is let's go back into my repeater control because I'm going to expound on the sub dialog. So I'm going to make sure I uncheck legacy because I want to use the sub dialog rule flow. Now what I can say here is that I'm going to fetch, let's see, fetch entities, or actually I don't need to fetch entities. I'm going to, because I already have that, I could say is empty, is list empty. That's what I can do. And then what I can do is I can take this list, go to form data. I can go to, no. I can go to the current item of the dog and I can look at the breed. And I can say, is it empty? If this is empty, right, then I can say, I mean, you could do it that way, or you can just show nothing. I'd rather just show nothing. Make it kind of simpler. I'm making this too big to engineering. Why does it do that? Or actually, I think I know why it does that, but that's not how that function should work out. Hold on. There's a portal setting I need to change real quick. No, yeah, it shouldn't be auto lock, should be inactivity timer. Anyway, side the point. Okay, for Nancy, we were in the repeater control. Yeah, I know, I gotta break everything now. I was back here using, yes, I wanna break the lock again. Luckily, there wasn't that much to it. And so what I'm going to do is going to show form, another form here, and it's going to be a text. I'm sorry, create new, and it's going to be a form that says display breed. That's all we're going to say. And when I do this, I can display the breed. Now, since if I put that in a database, it will be serialized by commas. I can say split the string by commas, but then I have to do a multi-line to display that. I could say joins. You could do it that way. I'm just going to create something simple. Just I can display them all in the drop down list right here. I'm going to display. I'm just going to display it all here. There'd be a fun way I can do this. This is going to be display breed info. This is going to be done. And this is going to be actually, yeah, we'll do it this way. Display breed info. And let me do some directions because I can say label, add a new breed on a new line. I want to display breed. If there's nothing on, you can say this. So now what I can do is I can say, hey, let's, oh, here you go, join strings. Join strings with separator with special character. Boom, separator is going to be a new line break, and the list of string is going to be the breed. Current dogs, breed, perfect. Now what I will do is then on the output, we'll say, hey, whatever someone adds, split string. Here we go, split string by new line, because that's what we're going to do, source. So it's going to be the output of display breed info. And then I'm going to say, go ahead and update that current item's breed with that name. So now what this should look like, let's see if this works. Oh, wait. Select from flow. Join strings with special character. This is the input, that's the output. Current item breed should change that. Perfect. All right, so now what should happen, now that I have this, if I go to my main flow, and this is main flow, 5 minutes, I got this. This is gonna be great. Show form, boom, boom, pick form, recent 80 dog grid, which is where I'm going to say, let's fetch all my dogs, fetch entities, put it this way, attach it here. This is going to be dogs, select from flow, entity results, boom. So now when I debug this, awesome. I should have nothing in the breed and flow. Yeah, because there's nothing in there. I know. Okay, yeah, because there's nothing. That's why. Input is null, right? Yep, input is null. So it can't line break, nothing. So actually, at least for my situation, because of how I configure this, I need to check if it's null. So let me move this here. And I could say is list empty? Or is list empty? Right? And then if it's true, if it's false, we're going to go here. We're going to split. If not, yeah, that makes sense. Because if it's false, wait, is list empty? True. So then we don't need to split the strings because there's nothing to split. So we're going to go straight to the form. If it isn't empty, then we have to split the strings so we can display the data. So now I'm going to select from flow, go to current item, go to breed. That's going to be the list we check. Now we should be good. All right. Let's see. I got 3 minutes. Now if I debug this, right, view breed. Okay, there's nothing. So now I can say for the Comanche record, the breed, she was like a little bit of everything. Let's see, Labrador, German Shepherd, and then if I can't spell, sure. And then the other one, what's another kind of decently sized dog? We'll just leave it as these two. Done. And then now if I view breed info, boom, it gets left there. So I like that. So we got done, boom. So now I have that there. And I can add, or if I want to delete any, I can say done, does delete. Boom, perfect. So there we go. And then if I view breed info, nothing. This was a Pomeranian. This was also a Dachshund. It was every short dog you can imagine. I can't spell Dachshund. I think that's how you spell it. Nope. Give me. Nope. We're saving it. Done. And then I can say view breed info. Boom. And that's what it has. So there's one iteration of it, Nancy.
Jared, a quick question.
Sure, go right ahead.
So can I do that without having to do a sub dialogue so that they can basically pull that up, see it on a form without having to go and do another click?
Another UI experience.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can. You could. You would. Well, it. You can. What you would have to do is then you would have to find some way to. There's two things you'd have to do, right? You have to say, okay. The reason why I did it this way is because inherently in a data repeater, I
Mhm.
already know what row I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
So when I click view breed, I know I'm getting just, the Comanche's breed type record. I'm not getting Cisco's. If
Right.
you do it the other way, like you're saying, you still can, but what you have to do then is you have to be able to you have to identify which one owns what. That's why in this scenario, if you do have a data type that's separate like that, we would break them out into separate data types. So like, kind of like a classroom, right? Each, classroom has tables, desk chairs, and students, but students is its own data type. And it has, students have a name, a degree program, and stuff like that. And we store the ID of that student for the class. And then you just reference the student based on that specific ID. So that's the problem we'd have to deal with there is getting that particular piece of data that way.
Okay. All right.
For additional assistance, I would ask someone on support to walk you through how to build that, because you can do that. It would just be very hard to talk it over. Like
Yeah.
you'd have to so that's what I would recommend.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks.
I'll still send you this so you have it
Okay.
as a project that you can mess around with.
Okay. Thanks.
So, all right. Any final comments or questions? Alrighty. I'll go ahead and end the call. This recording will be posted online. Thank you so much for attending, and I'll see you guys next time.